Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have the latest on very cold and snowy conditions that we do have returning for all as we do head through this working week. We've seen that low pressure system that's brought in that milder sector clearing away to the east through Monday morning, and it is leaving us all back in that very cold Arctic air. Now the air mass is a lot more unstable now as we do have a lot more lower pressure around than we did see last week, so we are expecting a lot more convective showers and disturbances, especially through this evening, where we could see pretty significant accumulations in a few spots where we do see those showers really pepping up. Again, it's convective based, so we're not looking at widespread snow, but for quite a few there are opportunities over the coming hours to see additional precipitation. We can already see that on the live radar at the moment with those northerly winds starting to come in, bringing some of those heavy snow showers back through. Now we have warnings issued for the next 2 days for all of that convection, and then on Wednesday there is the risk of some more persistent heavy snow in the south as we do see a channel low approaching, and we have got a yellow warning now issued for that for those southernmost counties. Now that warning isn't saying exactly where it's going to snow, and if you're outside of that warning doesn't mean you're not going to see some snow, but that's the area where we've got some pretty good confidence now that there will be accumulating snow, because the channel low is very difficult to forecast, and we'll show you various runs in the start of this video, and we'll be able to see that subtle differences in its positioning will mean the difference between a few flurries or maybe 5 centimetres. And that makes a big difference, especially to disruption. And then, of course, in the second half of the video, we'll have a look at the longer range charts, because it is looking likely now, very likely, that the cold spell will end by the end of the week, with higher pressure toppling in. We'll still keep it chilly. Temperatures overnight could still be close to freezing, with an inversion taking place, especially in the east. And there's even the risk of some chilly easterly winds pushing in. But at the moment, not expecting anything too major, just turn much drier and slowly warmer air masses will waft back in. However, we are already starting to see signs of a second wave of colder air, perhaps during the middle or second half of January. The ECM WF really pushing that today, and it was pushing it yesterday if you did see that YouTube short. So yeah, very interesting from the ECM WF, and there's starting to show some hints on the ensembles as well. Nothing too overwhelming yet, but just starting to see those signs. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, much do like and subscribe. And remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. Now to start on the live radar, you can see there's an eclectic mix here of rain and snow as we do see that big low pressure system pulling eastwards. See this big hook. That is what gave us all our rain and snow over the past 48 hours or so. Now it's back into Scandinavia. You can see the far western edge is slowly clearing, and you can see behind it, the majority of the precipitation is now falling as snow as we are all back into the very cold air. The far east, East Anglia, still holding on to some slightly milder conditions, but further westwards it is much colder. For example, in the south it is colder now at 2 p.m. than it was at 2 a.m. 12 hours ago. Temperatures dropped by between 5 and 10 degrees in most areas. So yeah, really chilly conditions, and you can already start to see some of that instability in the west. These little disturbances pepping up the showers, giving them a bit more organisation as they slowly move in from the northwest, and as I said, could give further accumulations in places. But you can already see some of these showers streaming in off the Irish Sea. Locally, if you get hit by one of these, it could be a few centimetres of snow, but you could be 10 miles away and see nothing. So it is going to be very hit and miss through the coming hours. But yeah, just wanted to warn you that there is a possibility of some decent snow accumulations in places in the next sort of day or two. If you look at the temperatures, you can see how it is so much colder. It doesn't look like actually East Anglia is now in the colder air, but you can see the milder areas now across parts of Germany and the Netherlands and Belgium, all slowly getting pushed away. Temperatures now down to kind of 4 or 5 degree maxes, but it'll drop much further tonight as we start to see those really cold overnight temperatures coming back. And you can already see in the north and the west still very cold. Now, if you look at the past 24-hour snow, we'd expect to see really only where we had that amber warning in the north, and that's exactly what we can see. That amber warning, seen an additional 20 centimetres in the past 24 hours. And you can see there was a bit of back edge snow as well earlier this morning. from that weather front clearing. No, I didn't see many imagery for this or any images or videos. We're not expecting accumulating snow from this because the ground was much, much milder as all of these areas got into that milder wedge. Some of them less so, some of them only got up to maybe 5 or 6 degrees, but that's still way too mild to see accumulating snow. So falling snow for some of these areas very early this morning, but not too much in the way of accumulating snow apart from those areas that did stay to the north of the warm front. Now, to go over to the weather warnings now, you can see we've got numerous warnings issued for the rest of today. We've got a snow and ice warning issued in the west from 5 p.m. this evening until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. It's for all of those heavy snow showers coming in off the Irish Sea and potentially a few disturbances developing as well that could give more enhanced widespread snow showers, and that's why the warning does extend further inland. Traditionally, with an Irish Sea convection, we wouldn't expect to see the showers getting more than kind of 50 miles inland, but in this case, could travel a couple hundred miles inland as we do see a disturbance developing. We could see a few centimetres of snow, maybe up to 5 centimetres above 200 metres, and again a few centimetres at low-lying areas from some of the heavy showers. So we're not expecting masses, but locally there could be some disruption from this. You can see it is a medium likelihood, low impact. Similar warning issued here for Northern Ireland, and it's for kind of the same sort of impacts here from snow showers and potential disturbances. You can see it's from 3 p.m. until 11 a.m, so all shifted further forward. Again, any disturbances that come for these western parts of England and Wales will likely have passed through Northern Ireland as well. And then this snow and ice warning that's issued from 4 p.m. until midday tomorrow, again for just classic convective showers coming in from the north, a few centimetres to low-lying areas, and then maybe 5 to 10 centimetres above 200 metres. Into Tuesday, all those warnings are still into force, so there's a bit of a lull through Tuesday afternoon into the evening, where those snow showers do start to get cut out. They won't go to zero, but they'll be very exclusive towards coasts, northern-facing coasts. But then into Wednesday, we've got this other warning for heavy snow for southern parts of England. Interestingly, it's the M4 line southwards. The snow event on Saturday night was all about the M4 line northwards. Some areas to the south saw some snow, but it was accumulating snow pretty much to the north of that line, up towards the north of London, where I am, saw about 5 centimetres of snow, but I know equally 50 miles further southwards into central London or South London saw very little, just a bit of slush. So yeah, it was a very stark dividing line there. And it looks like this system is kind of making up for that. So all those areas to the south of the M4 line got a pretty high chance of seeing at least some falling snow and potentially some disruption from 9 a.m. on Wednesday until midnight on Wednesday, where the system may push snow into some southern counties of England on Wednesday, which could be disruptive. So pretty vague there, and that's because, again, we don't have a lot of certainty. As I said, this warning could be further northwards. We have got some runs getting the snow up to Gloucester, Worcester, maybe even to Birmingham, Cambridge, Milton Keynes, that far northwards, but it is a minority. There are more getting up towards the north of London, Oxford, St Albans, Chelmsford, that sort of area, but most and pretty much all get some snow, again, varying amounts into this yellow warning zone, and that's why I think this has been issued. You can see it's even down right towards the south coast, so expecting widespread snow, not just inland or elevation. The air mass is very cold. There could be a bit of mixing towards coastal areas. That is always very tricky. You need an exceptionally cold air mass to guarantee snow everywhere, but most areas should see snow here. Again, it does say not all areas will be affected, and outbreaks of snow may push in from the southwest during Wednesday, 2 to 5 centimetres widely, up to 10 centimetres over higher ground. Rain or sleet is possible near the coasts. Again, the weather system may remain further southwards or even could go slightly further northwards. So we're not looking at massive amount of snow here, 20, 30 centimetres like we saw in some places on Saturday night. But we could be looking at 5, maybe 10 centimetres potentially, like we saw in some of those southern and eastern areas of that yellow warning zone from Saturday night. So yeah, very interesting seeing that, and at the moment it is medium impact, very low likelihood. There is, of course, scope, I must say very low scope for it to be moved to an amber warning. We need to see some of the more extreme runs coming off and verifying, but at the moment you can see that, yeah, warning issued, confidence increasing, and we'll have to keep a very close eye on this system. Now, if you go over to the latest UKV, you can see all that snow on the back edge early this morning as that system cleared, opening the door to lots of heavy wintry showers. And then through this evening, you can see these disturbances forming further westwards. Again, uncertain exactly how these will develop. They're just very small areas of low pressure, what makes it even more difficult to forecast intensities and positioning. And you can see this little disturbance moves through Northern Ireland, starts to track into Wales, southwest England, and could produce some more further heavy snow showers, moving quite far inland there through the early hours of Tuesday, eventually clearing eastwards, and then seeing more snow showers through Tuesday morning, but they do start to die out during the evening, apart from the far north of Scotland, and maybe Northern Ireland, and maybe a little bit there towards the northwest. But then look at that channel low pushing in heavy snow right along the south coast, exactly where we got that warning zone. You can see again M4 line southwards. Again, we're not looking at masses here. It's not huge precipitation rates. You're not seeing those really high rates like we saw on Saturday night. But regardless, frozen ground still could be some decent accumulations. And as I said, some runs are bringing this system a lot further northwards, eventually clearing. And then we stay very cold with a few wintry showers into the latter part of the week. And then weather fronts trying to come up against that colder block. Again, could be some leading edge snow as we slowly start to see that cold air breaking down and milder air getting pushed in. If you look at the snow depth, you can see, again, snow quite widely in the north and the west through this evening. Again, to massively varying amounts. And then you can see into Wednesday, snow along the far south coast, a few centimetres here, kind of 1 to 5. So not masses, but other runs are showing a lot more than that, eventually clearing through there into Thursday. And you can see, it's the latter part of the week, a bit of snow, but again, nothing too crazy. So you look at the max temperatures over the coming days, very cold this afternoon compared to yesterday, 4 or 5 degrees, and in the north and west, not much above freezing. Overnight site temperatures widely down towards 0 degrees, widespread frost, and into tomorrow afternoon once again, not getting much above 2 to 5 degrees. Into Wednesday, a really harsh overnight frost, so any of that snow in the south, the ground is frozen, it will settle. So that is, again, a positive if you do want snow, but of course if you don't want the disruption, you don't want the ice and that dangerous condition, and you are travelling on Wednesday, for example, then yeah, this is not a good sign. It does mean the ground will be frozen and snow will readily settle. And then through Wednesday afternoon, look at those temperatures, 1 or 2 degrees at best, even towards those far southern areas. Again, that does bring a really substantial risk of that snow settling, readily settling, and being significant again. And again, temperatures overnight dropping well below freezing. Look at that, -5 come Thursday morning. And then again, Thursday afternoon, not getting much above freezing. And Friday, again, another very cold morning. And into the afternoon, again, not getting much above freezing, for eventually that weather front starts to push in. And again, risk of some freezing rain, a bit of snow, but it doesn't look like it's going to be a particularly quick transition, which does reduce the risk of heavy precipitation. Now, I do want to run through all of these short range runs, very similar to what we did yesterday, having a look at the channel low and its positioning. Now, the arpege has been fairly optimistic with the channel low over the past few days, pushing it quite far northwards. It's gone very far south this morning. And you can see for the 6 o'clock run, it is just skirting the far south coast, some of it even falling as rain before eventually clearing. So arpege, not particularly optimistic there with any of that snow, whereas yesterday it was all snow and it was much further northwards. If we do check out the icon run, this has actually done the opposite to the arpege. It's shifted much further northwards today, and you can see substantial snow even getting towards London there. Again, focused M4 southwards, but even into London, some heavy snow there into Thursday morning. Again, if we put on the snow depth for this, again, we are seeing at least a few centimetres, maybe even more developing there across the far south coast. So yeah, very interesting seeing that. If you compare it to the GM, yes, low resolution, but again, along that south coast, skimming through, again, we can only look at 3-hour intervals, but expect to see at least a few hours of snow there during Wednesday afternoon before it does pull away. If we do compare it to the GM, again, that low pressure system pushing in, substantial snow at M4 line southwards, and again, you can see that snow getting up towards the South Midlands potentially there. Again, it would be more flurries and lighter snow, and maybe some minor accumulations. We wouldn't be looking at anything too major. But interestingly, that does push in nonetheless for eventually clearing, and then maybe some more substantial snow there during Friday. And then finally, if we look at the ECMWF, again, that low skirting the far south coast, very similar to the UKV. You see, all runs pretty much get some precipitation into the far south, and that's why that warning has been issued. We don't have many, or if at all, runs, completely missing the far south. It is possible, but I'd say it is reasonably unlikely at this stage that we see absolutely nothing, considering the amount of runs that are showing a bit of winteriness. But we will have to wait and see. Again, would have your fingers crossed if you want some snow, especially if you are to the north of that warning zone, or even towards sort of the M4 line northwards. Then there is a relatively low chance, but it's still possible. But if you are in that warning zone, especially kind of that mid portion of that warning zone, because if you go further southward, there's a risk of a bit of mixing. But if you are in that firm central southern England, I think there is quite a high chance that you see something falling and potentially accumulating there through Wednesday. So very interesting there, pretty much making up for the lack of snowfall there on Saturday night. And if you finish by looking at the longer range, you can see the latest GFS, that low pressure system clearing, and that channel low pushing through this small little system. Again, if it was more well developed, then it would push slightly further northwards. It would oppose that Icelandic high a little bit more, and of course the precipitation would be heavier, so we'd be looking at more substantial snow. But it is pretty weak, but still could deliver something there through Thursday. Beyond that, the high pressure eventually topples and we see high pressure building in. Still a very cold end of the week, but into next week we do see slightly milder temperatures starting to push in. Now the GFS hasn't really shown anything remotely cold in its longer range. Normally the GFS is the first to go back to something very cold, but GFS actually showing a really mild westerly flow, a bit of high pressure trying to ridge northwards, but nothing too major, which is very interesting. The GFS has traditionally been the run that always kind of goes for those extremes early. Sometimes right, sometimes really wrong, but it always shows some fun charts. Today, though, not really showing much, and it's not really showing much for the last couple of days, which is very interesting to see. You can see right at the end, it's actually pushing in a bit of a southerly flow. It'd be actually pretty mild. And if we look at those surface temperatures, we'd be looking at fairly mild conditions. Nothing crazy, still potentially single digits in places with high pressure inversion taking place, but generally speaking, we wouldn't be expecting anything particularly cold there at all. Compared to the GM, again, only goes out to day 10, but you can see regardless, high pressure building in later on this week into the weekend, but immediately at day 10, it starts to try ridge up towards Greenland again. It has a go. Doesn't mean it's going to be successful. It does kind of lose some of its momentum there into the last few frames, but it is trying to produce something much colder, and it is pushing a big cold blast out of Greenland. It might just head towards Scandinavia and Eastern Europe. That's a real possibility, but it could head to Northern and Western Europe if that block gets going. You see mild air trying to push northwards to Northern Canada, and you can see a block is trying to set up, but nothing too major. But it's nothing compared to the GFS. GFS not hinting at that at all. And the ECMWF is full-blown cold in its longer range. Just look at this. That little channel low moves through. We do see high pressure building in, frosty, cold for a time, but then right into the second half of its run. Look at this. We have a couple of days of it settling down, turning perhaps a little bit milder, but still chilly, for ridging back towards Greenland and unlocking the doors to bitterly cold northerly winds once again. Now, it doesn't sustain itself, so there would be some interesting scenes here. Cold air coming up against mild air, but regardless, still does try and produce something very cold into the second half of the month. Now, if you finally compare to the ensemble, so we start on the GFS, very cold for the rest of this week, slow rise through the weekend, and then it's above average for the early part of next week, and then it's slowly trending back towards average. Some cold runs appearing, but again, not many, 5 or 6, so maybe 20% of the ensemble members, most though keep us average to above average, but a very strong drying signal there, which is a real positive. You see the 2 meter temperatures aren't amazing, and that's because under that higher pressure we're still likely to see a bit of an inversion. There has been a little uptick in those temperatures next week, maybe 7 or 8 degrees, but again, that's not massively mild compared to those upper air temperatures. You can see though this week, very cold. You see Wednesday, Thursday, the ensembles here pretty optimistic of seeing some snow. So yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that. It looks like the ensemble's here from the GFS definitely pushing that snowfall much further northwards. There's not many of those operational ones that we looked at did produce snow in the London. Maybe 2 of them did. So yeah, very interesting seeing that from those ensembles. And then if we finish by looking at the ECM WF, broadly very similar, very cold over the next sort of 4 or 5 days, milder into the weekend and starts next week. A very slow uptick though across 3 or 4 days, and you can see it's generally frosty, and then that very cold northerly wind arrives. You see actually for the south, that very cold air doesn't fully push in, and that's because it collides with milder, so there would be some substantial snow around, but maybe not in the south. But you can see plenty of other very cold runs appearing. A real minority, again, like 6 or 7, compared to the other sort of 40 odd that are still average or above average, but it's increasing, and the operational run has shown it twice on the trot. Again, we can't discount it, but we can't say it's got a high probability. But an interesting thing to keep an eye on, we did look at over the weekend at the weekly mean anomalies, the weather regimes on the ECMWF, which did definitely show further blocking to our north, so it has definitely got some support in those longer range charts. We'll just have to see it come to properly come to fruition in the coming days. But regardless, got a very cold week coming up, more opportunities for snow. Don't think it's going to be anywhere near as disruptive as Saturday, but locally it could still be very disruptive, especially for those southern areas on Wednesday and western areas through this evening into tomorrow with some more heavy snow showers. Things could still change. Again, we've had a lot of surprises over the last few days, and again, subtle differences in the positioning of any of these disturbances or low pressure systems or even the cold air can make a massive difference to what you see at the surface. So make sure you stay tuned, keep up to date, and of course I'll keep those videos coming, updating you on those weather warnings as well, as I do suspect we could see some further changes of that for that channel low. But fortunately, if you don't like the colder weather, if you like something a little bit milder, it should slowly warm up later this week. We're not looking at anything that mild, but at least we wouldn't be seeing snow or frost around come this weekend and start of next week. So thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.